My sister said, "You're not one of us, stop forcing it." Mom nodded, "She's right, you never fit in." I just smiled and left without a word. 2 weeks later, when their family vacation went wrong, I woke up to 35 missed calls from my sister begging for help. I'm Evelyn from Charlotte, North Carolina. 32, no kids, never married. The type of daughter who remembers birthdays, drives across town when mom's car won't start, and still shows up to family events even when no one really asks me to. I guess you could say I'm the background character in my own family. The reliable one. The one who never makes a scene. And for a long time I thought that was enough. That if I kept showing up, kept proving I was loyal, kept being the first to offer help, they'd eventually start treating me like one of them. Not just someone who happened to share their last name. Brittany, my younger sister, was always the golden one. Always center stage even when she had nothing interesting to say. When we were kids it was cute. She was bubbly, charming, always had a bow in her hair and knew how to cry on command. But as adults, it just turned into this weird dynamic where she could do absolutely nothing and still be worshipped like she was saving the world. Mom and Dad never tried to hide it. They lived in orbit around her. So I kept trying. I never once missed a birthday or holiday. I paid off Dad's medical bill once without telling anyone. I filled their fridge when money was tight. And every time Brittany got a new job or broke up with someone or decided to move again, I was the one hauling boxes, helping her get her life back together. And every time I thought, maybe this will be the time they finally see me. So when Mom called about dinner that Thursday night, I let myself hope. I'd heard them talking about a trip, something about Indonesia or maybe Thailand, and for a split second I thought maybe they're finally including me. I even bought a blouse. New one, not on clearance. Dinner was already in full swing when I got there. Brittany was talking about how her manager basically begged her not to take too much time off because the company couldn't function without her. Dad was laughing like he'd never been prouder of anything in his life. Mom was already halfway through a glass of wine. I sat down, smiled, tried to join in. I asked about the trip. That's when Brittany looked at me dead serious and said, "You're not one of us. Stop forcing it." Just like that. Like she was commenting on the weather. Not cruel, not angry, just honest. Brutally, casually honest. And Mom nodded. "He's right. You never fit in." I didn't say a word. I just sat there staring at my plate and then I smiled. Not because anything was funny but because I finally understood. It didn't matter what I did. It was never going to be enough. I got up, walked out, drove home in silence. Didn't cry. Didn't call anyone. Just sat in the dark and let the truth settle. They left for Bali 2 days later. I saw it all unfold on Instagram. Champagne at the airport lounge, selfies in first class, matching white linen outfits, some over-edited caption about living their best life. I muted all their accounts. Then I muted their numbers. I didn't hear a thing for almost a week. Then 6 days into their perfect vacation I woke up to 35 missed calls. All from Brittany. At first I didn't react. 35 missed calls from Brittany was obviously a crisis, but it didn't feel like my crisis. I didn't rush to check the voicemails. I didn't even open my phone right away. I just stared at the number, blinked a few times and went back to what I was doing. Folding laundry, sipping cold coffee, ignoring reality. It wasn't until the 5th time I walked past my phone and saw the screen light up with yet another missed call that I sat down on the edge of my bed and started listening. The first few messages were exactly what I expected. Her voice sharp, controlled, like she was trying to sound calm but already unraveling. She said she needed to talk to me, said it was urgent. No details. Just demand after demand in her usual tone, like I worked for her. By message 4, her voice cracked. She said their hotel room had been broken into. All their cash, gone. Their wallets too. Somehow their phones weren't taken, but their credit cards were frozen because of suspicious activity. She said the US Embassy wouldn't help them fast enough, that their airline tickets home weren't booked yet, which didn't surprise me at all. Dad always thought pre-planning was for suckers. He liked winging it. Then she said something that actually made me pause. He said Mom was sick. Not sick like caught a cold but sick like heatstroke or worse. She said they'd been walking around looking for someone who spoke enough English to help them get to a clinic. But everything cost money and they didn't have any. That's when I started to smile. Not because I was happy they were suffering. It wasn't like that. It was because life, for once, was showing them what it felt like to be on the outside. I didn't call back. Said I made breakfast. I washed my face. I took a long, slow drive to Target and picked up a candle I didn't need and a pair of throw pillows I couldn't afford. Just to enjoy the silence. They had finally reached the part of life where they needed me. And I wanted to feel that shift. I wanted to sit in it for a while. Around 2 p.m. I finally texted her back. "What do you need?" She responded within seconds. "Money. Flights. Please." No apology. No explanation. Just demands like always. I asked for the hotel name and their booking info, and then I said I'd get back to her. She didn't like that. Kept texting, calling again. I let it all go to voicemail. I didn't ignore them because I was being cruel. I was giving them space to feel what I'd felt for years. The silence, the helplessness, the sense of being left out with no explanation. I wanted that to settle in. That evening I wired them enough for a few days. Just enough to get by, not enough to be comfortable. Then I booked 3 economy seats back to Charlotte. No upgrades. No direct flight. 2 layovers, both long and inconvenient. And just for fun I chose middle seats. When the confirmation hit Brittany's inbox, all I got in return was a thumbs up emoji. No words. No thanks. They landed 3 days later. I knew their arrival time, but I didn't go to the airport. I watched the flight tracker. I saw the delay. I imagined them cramped in those awful seats, stuck in O'Hare for 7 hours overnight with no lounge access, no fancy wine, no warm towels. Just them and their entitlement slowly peeling away. 3 days after they got back, Mom sent me a text. Thanks for the help. Hope you're well. That was it. No call. No visit. Not even a follow-up to ask how I was doing. Just 7 dry words that felt like a receipt for a favor. I stared at it for a while. Then I set my phone down and didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because something had shifted. Something big. They were never going to love me the way I wanted. But they needed me now. And for the first time I had control. And I wasn't in any rush to give it back. 2 weeks after they got back from Bali, things went quiet. No texts, no calls, not even the usual check-in from Mom asking if I'd heard about Brittany's new project at work. I didn't mind. I knew the silence wasn't peace, it was calculation. They were trying to figure out what to do with me now that I wasn't begging for attention anymore. And then Brittany cracked. She called on a Tuesday afternoon twice in a row. I didn't answer. The 3rd call came an hour later. Still ignored. I knew what was coming, she needed something. Next day Mom called. Then Dad. Then Brittany again. No one left a voicemail until Thursday. I was making dinner when I saw the notification and finally played the message. Her voice was softer than usual. Too soft. She said her car wouldn't start. Said she was supposed to be driving out of town that weekend and didn't want to cancel because it was important. She made it sound like it was a big deal, but I knew better. Brittany's idea of an emergency usually involved a weekend cabin, bottomless mimosas and a ring light. She said, I know you're probably busy or whatever, but if you have time to help, maybe just this once? Just this once. Like the last 15 years hadn't happened. I let it sit. Didn't respond that night. Or the next. And I didn't feel guilty about it. On Saturday morning she texted again, this time with a photo of her car and a message that said, still stuck. No one else can come. Any chance you could just look at it? I waited 2 hours before replying. What's wrong with it? She launched into a half-baked explanation about how it just wouldn't start. Something about the engine clicking but not turning over. She even added, I think it's the battery or something, but like, who knows? I knew she didn't really want me to fix it. She wanted me to take the problem off her hands entirely. So I did. I called Marcus, a guy I'd known since college who ran a small auto repair shop just outside of town. He owed me a favor, so I cashed it in. Told him to send a tow truck to Brittany's place, check out the car and bill me directly. Later that evening he called. Nothing serious, he said. Loose connection on the battery and a dead fuse. She could have fixed it herself with a screwdriver and a YouTube video. Figures. I had them tow the car back to her driveway, clean it inside and out, top off the gas and leave the keys under the mat. I never told her what it cost. And she never asked. A few hours later I got a text. Got the car. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Not even a thanks, let alone an apology for everything she said at dinner. But I didn't expect one. Because by now I realized, this wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about being accepted. It was about power. For the first time in my life I had it. Quietly. Strategically. And it was making them squirm. On Monday Mom called. This time she didn't beat around the bush. She said she needed help filling out some insurance paperwork and didn't want to do it wrong. Said Brittany was too busy and your father just gets frustrated with online stuff. She kept her voice polite, almost awkward. I told her I'd come over on Saturday afternoon. No drama. No hesitation. I showed up, finished the paperwork in under 40 minutes and left without staying for dinner. No lingering. No pretending to care about Brittany's new hair color or Dad's yard work updates. I didn't even ask about their week. And something shifted in the room when I grabbed my keys and said, all right, I'll head out. They looked like they didn't expect me to leave that easily. Like they didn't realize they weren't holding the reins anymore. That night something weird happened. Dad called me. Not for help. Not for anything actually. Just to say hi. Said he was watching a rerun of an old show I used to love as a kid and thought of me. Said he hoped I was doing well. That had never happened before. Ever. It wasn't much. But it was different. Because now they didn't know what to do with me. I wasn't chasing them anymore. I wasn't proving anything. I wasn't making a case for why I deserved to be part of the family. They were the ones making the case now. And I liked it that way. 2 weeks after I helped with Mom's insurance mess, the silence was almost unsettling. I'd grown so used to being their emotional handyman, patching holes, fixing what no one else wanted to deal with, that their quiet suddenly felt like a pause before a storm. But this time I didn't worry. I didn't reach out. I didn't check Brittany's socials or call Mom to ask if everything was okay. I just lived my life. Then on a Wednesday night I got a group text from Dad's number. Dinner at our place Friday. 6 p.m. Just family. You want to talk? Stopped me cold. Not because of the invite. They'd asked me to dinner before, usually when someone needed something, but because of that last line. You want to talk? No extra fluff. No mention of birthdays or celebrations. Just a direct summons. It read more like a meeting than a meal. And the strangest part? It was from Dad, who rarely texts unless it's about a football game or a weather warning. It wasn't his voice. It was Mom. Definitely. I hesitated. Considered not going. But my curiosity got the better of me. So Friday evening I showed up. Everything was too perfect. Real candles, wine that didn't come from a box, Mom's best silverware. Brittany was there, sitting quietly at the table, phone flipped face down, which in her world might as well be a cry for help. We made small talk while we ate. The usual. Brittany brought up some story about work that no one really responded to. Dad commented on the weather like we weren't sitting in an artificially tense family summit. Then halfway through the meal, Mom put down her fork and said, "We've been thinking a lot about things. About how things went down before your sister's trip. And we realized we might have been unfair." She kept going, saying I'd always been reliable, and how I'd done a lot more for this family than anyone gave credit for. I sat still, barely blinking, because this wasn't just unusual, it was unrecognizable. Then Brittany jumped in. She didn't look at me when she said it. She said she felt bad about the Bali dinner, that she hadn't meant it to come out the way it did. That she was under a lot of pressure, and maybe took it out on me. The words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced them in the mirror. But even then, hearing Brittany admit anything was a rare event, like spotting a lunar eclipse in a thunderstorm. I stayed silent. Let them talk. Then Dad cleared his throat and dropped the real bomb. He said they'd been talking about the house, the one we all grew up in, and were considering transferring part of it into my name. Said it was time things were distributed fairly. My stomach dropped. Because that house, Brittany had been circling it for years. Dropping hints about turning it into an Airbnb, or modernizing it when it's hers. Mom always brushed her off, but we all knew she was just waiting for the right moment. Now they were offering me a piece of it. I didn't even respond. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded and finished my glass of wine. I left right after dessert. No lingering, no small talk. Just a polite smile and a thank you. But the strangeness didn't stop there. 2 days later I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I usually don't answer unknown calls, but something made me pick up. "Hi. Is this Evelyn? You don't know me, but I'm Celine. I used to room with your sister in college." My first thought was that Brittany had gotten herself into some new mess. I wasn't wrong. Celine told me Brittany had borrowed $5,000 from her months ago. Promised she'd pay it back once she returned from Bali. Said it was just a short-term thing. But Brittany had ghosted her. No return texts, no calls, nothing. She only called me because she saw my name listed as Brittany's emergency contact in a shared document from years ago. Celine said, "I thought maybe you were close. Or that you could reach her." I nearly laughed. I told her I wasn't close. Not even a little. Then I asked when Brittany borrowed the money. Celine gave me the date, 2 weeks before that family dinner. It clicked. That sudden change in tone. That "we want to talk" message. The house offer. Brittany's apology. All of it. They weren't grateful. They were scared. Scared I'd cut them off, or worse, start telling people what they'd done. They needed me on their side because the Golden Girl's shine was wearing off and mine was starting to reflect back at them. I didn't confront anyone. I just let it settle. Because now I knew something they didn't think I'd ever figure out. They still thought they were pulling the strings. But I was holding the scissors. The invitation came on a Thursday afternoon. Sunday dinner. Just us. "We want to thank you properly." Mom didn't even bother pretending it was spontaneous. The message was too polished, too perfectly timed. Right after I ignored Brittany's latest attempt to get me to co-sign a loan for something small, whatever that meant. They were moving fast and I knew why. The walls were starting to close in. So I said yes. Not because I needed their thanks, but because I wanted to see how far they'd go. When someone spends their whole life pretending you don't exist, watching them suddenly trip over themselves to praise you, it becomes entertaining. Like watching a snake try to charm its way out of a glass box. I showed up 5 minutes late. On purpose. Brittany opened the door, all smiles and perfume, and told me she'd cooked. That caught me off guard. She didn't cook. She barely microwaved. The one time she tried making pancakes in high school, she nearly set the kitchen on fire. But tonight, she said she made roast chicken, mashed potatoes from scratch, and some kind of lemon tart that she kept repeating was really hard to make. The whole thing was suspicious. Inside, everything was overdone. Real candles, soft jazz, wine glasses taller than necessary. It was obvious they were trying to stage some picture-perfect memory, like one of those fake holiday commercials where the family is laughing in slow motion. But the tension was thick enough to slice. We sat down and the performance began. Mom raised her glass halfway through the meal and gave a speech. She said how proud they were of me. How deeply grateful they were for everything I'd done. Helping with the Bali disaster, the car, the insurance forms, the emergencies I was never supposed to know about. She said I had always been the strong one, and they hadn't said it enough. Dad echoed the sentiment. Said I'd shown real maturity, that I'd become a woman they were proud to call their daughter. Even Brittany chimed in, awkwardly fumbling through an apology about how she'd taken me for granted and how she was trying to change. I sat there eating my lemon tart, which was clearly store-bought, and just nodded, occasionally saying thank you like someone watching a performance they weren't emotionally invested in. Because I'd heard enough lies from this family to last me a lifetime. And then Mom dropped the real line. She said they were officially signing over a portion of the family house to me. Said they'd contacted a lawyer. That they felt it was only right, after everything. That part caught my attention. Not because I believed them, but because I knew Brittany had to be absolutely dying inside. She'd been circling that house like a hawk for years, dropping hints about redesigns, turning it into a modern rental, calling it her future place even when our parents weren't in earshot. Now they were giving part of it to me. I didn't smile. I didn't act grateful. I just nodded and said, all right. I think that unsettled them more than any reaction would have. Because I wasn't reacting the way I used to. No big display of emotion. Asking why now. Just quiet acceptance. Like I was already used to being in control. After dinner, while Mom and Dad cleaned up, Brittany followed me outside. It was cold and damp and she didn't even have a coat on, like she'd rushed out before she could change her mind. She stood in front of my car and said, listen, I hate to ask this, but I really need a little help with something. It's not a lot. Just a short-term thing. I asked her what for. She hesitated. Said something vague about a business idea, and some startup stuff. The same way people talk when they don't want you to ask real questions. Then she said, you've always been good with money. And you help with the trip and my car and all that. So I thought, maybe you could help me one more time. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, standing there in the cold, still expecting me to hand her something, like I used to, and all I could think was how many times I'd been the one waiting in the cold for them to notice I was there. So I said, I'll think about it. She gave a tight smile and said, okay, but I could see in her face she wasn't expecting to wait. She thought I'd do it like always, but I didn't. I didn't text her. I didn't follow up. I didn't mention it to anyone. And no one brought it up again. Because the truth was sinking in, I didn't need them anymore. But they were starting to need me. After that last dinner, the one where Brittany asked for money and I simply said I'll think about it, I walked to my car without looking back. I didn't drive off in anger or relief or even triumph. Just calm. Focused. That was new. For most of my life I chased them. For love, approval, scraps of attention. I showed up first, stayed late, and offered more than anyone ever asked for. Not because they deserved it, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, if I proved I was enough, they'd let me in. But now, I had nothing left to prove. And somehow that gave me more power than I'd ever had under their roof. I didn't block them. I didn't make a dramatic exit. I just stopped. No more birthday reminders or thoughtful texts. No more unprompted check-ins to see if Mom's back was still bothering her or if Brittany needed help with her resume again. No more long, awkward visits where I smiled through the passive-aggressive jabs and laughed at jokes I wasn't part of. I just stopped trying. The first week it was quiet. But by the second the texts started. First from Mom. Random photos of the backyard roses blooming, a cake she baked, a blurry photo of her and Dad at a flea market. No context. Just the digital version of waving from across the street. Then came Dad. Liking my photos online. Commenting nice. On a picture of my coffee. I hadn't posted anything for weeks and suddenly he was scrolling back to last month like he was looking for something to say. And then Brittany. She sent me a video of her cat doing absolutely nothing. No caption. Just trying. They were testing the waters. seeing if I'd bite. I didn't. It was funny how quickly they noticed my absence when I stopped giving everything they never earned. One afternoon, Brittany called. I let it go to voicemail. She said, "I know I was a jerk. I know. But I miss having you around. Things are different without you." She paused, then added, "Let me know if you want to do brunch." The same brunch she tried weeks ago. The same strategy, just with a slightly more vulnerable tone this time. I didn't respond, because I wasn't doing this on their timeline anymore. Weeks passed. Then something new happened. I got a letter in the mail. Not a legal one, just a regular envelope handwritten. From Mom. It was a short note. A real one. Not a forwarded meme or an awkward holiday card. She wrote that she regretted how she let things become what they did. She said she should have done more to stand up for me. That it was easier to let Brittany lead because she was loud and confident, and I was quiet and self-sufficient. She said she thought I didn't need them. That part hit. Because she was right. I had made it without them. I had taught myself how to survive around their coldness. But I'd never stopped needing love. I just stopped expecting it to come from them. I didn't write back. But I didn't throw the letter away either. I tucked it into my desk drawer. 3 weeks later, another dinner invite came. This time Dad called. Said they wanted to have me over. No pressure, just, if you feel like it. I waited until the day of to say yes. When I arrived, Brittany opened the door like I was someone important. Not family. Not background. I guess they didn't want to offend. The table was simple. No overdone performances this time. No long speeches. No lemon tart pretending to be homemade. And yet everything was different. They were careful with their words. Asked how I was doing. Listened when I spoke. No eye rolls. No interruptions. After dinner, while Dad washed the dishes, something I'd never seen in my life, Mom sat beside me and said, "I meant what I wrote. I don't expect anything from you. But I just wanted you to know." I nodded. That was it. No forgiveness ceremony. No big emotional breakthrough. Just a quiet evening where for once I didn't feel like an outsider in my own bloodline. And that's when I realized I had finally turned the dynamic around. Not by shouting. Not by demanding. Just by stepping back and letting the vacuum speak louder than I ever could. Now they invite me. They reach out. They double text. And I show up when I want. I leave when I'm done. I don't overstay. I don't over-explain. They give more now because I give less. And that silence, that subtle shift, that's the revenge.